Day. We ask that you take care of our young men and women serving the country all over the world. Take care of our children. Bless our young adults, especially those young kids that don't know the hazards of narcotics and meth. Keep them away from it. Give them strength. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Lee. With that, I'd like to recognize Judge Olulole, who will do the swearing in.
Thank you for having me here, council members, and congratulations, sir, on your election. If you don't mind, please stand up for a minute. Would you raise your right hand, sir? And please repeat after me. I, Kenny Mallory,
I, Kenny Mallory,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
and bylaws
and bylaws
of the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska
of the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska
in the state of
in
Nebraska,
the state of Nebraska,
and that I will endeavor
and that I will endeavor
to perform faithfully
to perform faithfully
and well all the duties
and well all the duties
of a council member of the Tribal
as
Council
a council member of the Tribal Council
to which I've been elected.
to which I've been elected.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
If I can get your signature here, sir.
Okay.
That concludes swearing in. Thank you, sir. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, folks.
Thank you. Congratulations, Kenny.
Thank you.
So, are we ready to roll? Is everyone ready to? Oh, geez, sorry, Ken. I'm just off this morning. Can you give Kenny some time to offer some words?
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all those people that voted for me for being on to be on the council for the next 10 months. I say this in a humble way, and I hope it's accepted that way. I've always been a generous person to young people in need, to adults, and to senior citizens, and to various organizations of this tribe, and to my church. I look forward to continue that generosity with a tribe that today has so much ahead of it in a way of future resources through the ventures that were taken. I hope that we can supply everybody in this community with the support for a better livelihood and better living conditions. I know as a tribe we hire people from all different walks of life, and that's a good thing for our people. But on the other hand, we need to remind ourselves of those of our tribe that are downtrodden and haven't had the opportunities that are afforded by this tribe. I hope that you can count on me at this tribal table with this generous council to help fulfill my promises during the elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. Would anyone else like to say anything? Okay. Well, we're really happy to serve with you, Kenny, and your leadership is always appreciated. So, with that, I'd like to
I have
call us.
one comment.
Oh, one comment.
Kenny's the oldest member of the council.
He is. All right, Hannah.
Really happy.
Way to pass the torch, Hannah. So, good one. So, I'd like to call the regular meeting to order at 9:08 a.m. Our second oldest council member has blessed us with a morning prayer, so we'll go on that. And we have an agenda before us, council. Do we have any additions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion by Louis. Do we have a second? Second by Rona. Discussion. Objection to the motion. Motion carried 7-0-0. The first item are the reading of the minutes. We have the January 18th, 22 mid-monthly meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Eric. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Coley. Discussion. Objection to the motion. Motion carried 7-0-0. January 28th, 2022 Treasurer's Report minutes. Do we have a motion? We have a motion by Eric. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Coley. Discussion. Objection to the motion. Motion carried 7-0-0. The 5 signature ratifications. Number 1, approve tribal council special vote eligible voters list. Do we have a motion?
Motion to ratify.
We have a motion by Coley. Do we have a second? Second by Rona. Discussion. Objection to the motion. Motion carried 7-0-0. Number 2, approve the return to modified work schedule reassessment memo. Do we have a motion to ratify? We have a motion by Rona. Do we have a second? Second by Eric. Discussion.
Discussion.
Coley.
Just a quick comment. I know we are still in this, the so-called pandemic, but it's coming down, and I'm just starting not to agree with this work schedule as we are out in the communities, in the cities, and seeing what we see, and I just don't think it should continue on anymore as we get out into these venues that we're at, and there's people working half a days, coming at 10, leaving at 2 and stuff, and then after hours, seeing what's going on out in the local communities and venues, youth sports and stuff, not wearing masks and stuff. So I just want to make that comment.
Thanks, Coley, for expressing that, and we've heard a lot about that kind of throughout this pandemic. Is the organization is trying to put all these safety measures in place, like this modified work schedule, to try to reduce the contact, and it's a little counterproductive when we see folks at Walmart or at the youth games not wearing any masks, or maybe they're out doing other extracurricular activities. And so as the organization, I guess, moves forward, we can definitely keep those things in mind, because we don't want it abused. This is for the safety. And when we hear about what this one and that one are doing, it makes us think if we have the most productive solution. So, anyone else want to weigh in on that? Eric?
I agree with Councilman Brown on that, safety is just not between 9 to 5 or 8 to 4. It should be 24 hours, and so it'd be constant. And if that's the case, then maybe we should just go back to the regular work schedule. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric, for expressing that. And I know our administrators are watching the public health announcements that are coming out and weighing that, so we'll see what the numbers look like at the expiration of this one, and maybe it won't have as much support if we're seeing those numbers down and people. So we can encourage them to wear the masks. That's what we can do in the meantime.
So is this going to February 18th?
Yes.
And so then we reassess then?
Yes.
Okay.
So, any further comments? Objection to the motion. Motion carried 7-0-0. The next ratification is elder assistance for propane. Is
Motion
there,
to approve.
we have a motion by Eric. Do we have a second? We have a second by Louis. Discussion. I got a quick discussion item. When we had done that, I suspected that there would be more, and luckily we haven't had to do any more since then. But I didn't know if we wanted to handle them that way as they come in, or if the council wanted a special modified budget line item to address that. I just wanted to put it out there so that we can take care of anybody that might find themselves in that emergency.
Madam Chair, I think for our elders, I think there's 500 that they can get for heating assistance, but we've already had two during this cold spell that they went over the amount, and they're on fixed incomes. And so I think we should ask our CEO to work with the CFO and the treasurer and see where we can put some more money into there, because we're gonna have more seniors in this cold spell that already used up their limit from human services. We need to be ready for that.
Thanks, Lorelei, for that support. I'm just putting it out there so that if we can at least, we have several more months, or maybe a few at least, that are going to be cold, then it'll be hot. So just to plan, I guess, for the rest of the year, I don't want to ask you guys every little while, but so I just put it out there that we be thinking of where we want to shift some of those money around. There hasn't been much travel this year. There's probably more money in the tribal council's travel budget that we could shift over, and so just a recommendation that I want to make sure we're fair to everybody that walks in the door and they have a solution, because the solutions that are available to them, some, like Lorelei said, they exhausted those.
So does that need a motion down the road here on this agenda?
Yeah, but I'll work with Rona on that.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't make a plan. I just kind of threw it out there in
Okay.
discussion that I'd like to work with Rona on
All
that.
right.
So, any further comments? Any objection to the motion? Motion carried 7-0-0. The next one is approve special vote budget modification request. This budget modification was to ensure that we were able to have security on board as well. So is there a motion to approve that modified special vote budget?
Motion ratified.
Motion by Coley,
Second.
second by Brian. Discussion. Objection to the motion. Motion carried 7-0-0. Oh, excuse me, 8-0-0.
Be seven.
A 7? Okay. Under new business, we have the Human Services Daycare Project Building CRM contractor selection. Do we have Ron Nor on the phone? Do we have Ron or Joy on the line?
On the line, Ron should be joining us, I believe.
Hi, Joy. Joy, did you want to introduce the topic while we wait for Ron to get on?
Sure. The project is the child care center that is scheduled to be just north of the buffalo pasture there. We've gone to request for qualifications for construction companies. We received proposals, excuse me. I'm on right now. Okay, thanks. So Boyd Jones and HCI both responded. We scored those a little over a week ago, and I believe the score sheets have been shared with you in the packets. And then Ron has also shared the files on the qualifications from each of the entities. If you wanted to take a look at those this morning, I could share my screen for that. Oop. Wait, where did I go? Let's see. I- it didn't ask me what I wanted to share here, so bear with me just a second. I pushed the shared screen. But are you seeing the Boyd Jones thing there? Are you seeing my emails? Okay, I will move them over. Sorry. All right. Is that better? All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. I can't see what you guys see is the trick. So we have a sheet on that he shared with me on HCI that they're not involved in any litigation. Actually, I haven't looked this one over. Ron just wanted me to have it ready for you, so I apologize for a little bit. So it gives their general conditions that they went through, the things that we presented to them, and how they rated those. I'd really feel better if Ron was on to explain these to you. Apologize. And then there's a similar one here for Boyd Jones. Has their construction fees, general conditions, and the percentage that they would take. Let me see if I can get Ron on the phone, because like I said, I'm feeling a little unqualified to, I can follow along, but I'm not good enough to explain them to you, I guess is my thing. Like, so as you looked at the score sheets, did anybody have any questions? I can kind of roll over that with you at this point. Yes, I believe it's at the bottom of each one. And then if each of the folks that had scored them provided some comments, those I believe are all at the bottom of the sheets as well. You'll see that they're both equally qualified to do the project. They both have really good experience to go forward. So it's a little bit of a toss up. HCI has the additional points when you take into consideration the Indian preference. And I think that shows up on each of the score sheets.
We see what their outcome is after a few years. It kind of starts breaking down, and so I'd kind of like to see what Boyd Jones, how their projects are holding up in the long run. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Lorelai?
Madam Chair, is Ron Noor on the call? Because I'd like to hear his recommendation. A lot of the construction stuff, is kind of beyond my intelligence, but I always trust Ron Noor. So can he let us know is he making a recommendation?
Yeah, usually out of this process, he will tell us the one that the team
Okay.
scored high or the one that
Chairman?
for. Hi, Ron. Go ahead, take over.
All right. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked a little bit this morning. Sorry about that. It looks like you're going through the statement of qualifications that Boyd Jones presented. And, we've done, quite a bit of research on Boyd Jones, and I was aware, they're a contractor that's been in business, they said for 100 years. And I know they've been in Omaha for a long time. They're real aggressive, trying to get this project from us. And they're in the process of opening a satellite office over in Norfolk, which I think is, part of the reason that, they're pretty aggressive. And they've got a percentage of, it's less than 3%, of the, for their profit and overhead fees, which is, lower than what you would normally see it. But, I guess the way that I see it is, we've got two contractors that are both qualified to do this project. They're both good contractors, in my opinion. It would seem to me like we've got 5 points in there for Indian preference. And I think they're pretty even, except for the Indian preference part of it. I don't know if you looked at those scorecards or the proposals, but I guess one thing that I'm a little bit concerned with is, and this has been going on, for, several years now, is, we really struggle trying to get competition on our construction projects. And a good recent example was a week ago Friday, we had a bid opening for it's a 2,400 square feet expansion to the transit building. And I think we had a budget that was, it was pre-COVID of, I think, $520 some thousand. And that was based on, what the cost estimate was at that time. And we put it out, we put a bid package together, put plans and specs together, had an architect or a structural engineer, put a set of plans together, bidding documents. It's federal dollars, so we have to be open and transparent and do sealed bids, which tribe's procurement policy calls for the same thing with federal dollars, or with all dollars with the tribe. But we had, we received one bid, and that was from HCI. And I like HCI construction, and I think their superintendents, especially Jamie and Nick, the ones that are proposed for this project, are better than 90% of the superintendents that you would see. And I reflected that on my score sheet. But I guess it's always concerning when, when we see, more and more of a trend to only getting, not getting much competition. We've got a lot of construction projects coming up, and it would be, in my opinion, that it would be tough for HCI to perform the construction management or general contractor on all of those projects. So I don't know, it would be my thought, maybe at some point in these next projects in the next couple of years, we're going to have to do, it probably would be in our best interest to do a little more distribution. But you can see on, the way I scored it, and that's just me. I think, Alan scored it, Joy scored it, Autumn scored it, and Irita scored it also. And, not everybody was, exactly the same, but I think just in general, I think, the 5 of us that, that did score it, we're in agreement that, the contractors are pretty close and they're qualified to do this project. Boyd Jones is a not bigger contractor. I think they have a bonding capacity of over $100 million, which, we don't need this. This is a big project for us, but it's probably going to be a 12 to $14 million project. I scored it with Indian preference, with the HCI having the advantage with the 5 points for Indian preference. I don't know what else we can say other than, that's two good contractors, and kind of interested to see what tribal council thinks. If it's because it's as far as qualifications go, I think it's it's kind of a toss up, and I'm confident in either one of these contractors performing the work. And I think I'm not what Joyce said, but I think it's probably the same, and I think Alan also.
So looking at the score sheets, it looks like 2 of the scorers picked Boyd and 2 of the scorers picked HCI. Is that what you guys?
Yeah, I don't see Alan.
Yeah, you mentioned Alan. I don't see Alan's. in
I
the
think
packet.
Alan's was emailed because it came in after.
Done in afterward.
Yes, Alan's came in afterwards, and it was emailed to you, but not through the packet.
So, council, from what you can see in front of you, and let me just jump on the email and see what Alan says. Would anyone like to make a motion or make a recommendation? Let's see.
I have a
What
question.
did Alan say?
Let me look for Alan's. It would have come from Joy.
Joyce,
Look
can you
for
put that
Alan's
up?
and pull it up for you also.
If HCI is as good as they say they are, why do we need Indian preference?
Got a recommendation.
Could you repeat that?
Here's
Louis?
Alan's score.
Louis was saying that HCI barely are. If they're so good, why do they need Indian preference?
It's in our procurement policy. The Indian preference is it's part of our solicitation.
So often, I'm always for HCI just because I think we should support our own companies. But hearing the comments, it sounds like from what you said, if we always pick HCI, no one will ever bid on our jobs. So I'm trying to strike the balance between supporting our own companies and showing that we have fair competition.
Comment.
Eric?
100 years, being in business over 100 years says something by itself. And showing that the Boyd Jones is cheaper. I think we should go with Boyd Jones. That's reasonable. We always go with the lowest person. And 100 years alone says that they do a pretty good job. They've done it for quite a while. So I'm in favor of Boyd Jones. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Eric.
I'm
Ron?
not arguing for either company. I'm talking about the concept of Indian preference. I found out that we won a contract in Pender and build a building over there. I didn't know that. But it sounds like HCI is not limiting itself to Indian projects. They're bidding projects outside of the reservation, outside of tribal control, and they're winning them on basic competition values. So we could limit that. I just want to talk about it so I better understand it. Because Eric is saying we go by the low bid. He's not making a choice between Boyd or HCI. He's making the money choice, low bid. We went on low bid and so in Pender, But we gotta figure out what's best for HCI, because that's what's best for the tribe. I'm just weighing the balance.
Mm-hmm.
Ron, thinking of Louis' comment and the projects that the tribe has underway, does HCI have the capacity to do it all? Or would it be smart to spread the love?
Um,
He's on the spot.
I don't know to what extent the South Sioux office for HCI construction is involved in the casino projects that are going on right now. It's my understanding, just from talking to Keith Kilpatrick, that none of their superintendents, and they've got good superintendents with Jamie and Nick and Vern, and good project foremans. What Keith is telling me is that none of those guys are doing any of the work down in, I think Omaha is probably where they're getting started on the first casino, from what I understand, the Omaha or Lincoln. But I don't think the casino projects are that much of a draw away from their office in South Sioux. I know Keith Kilpatrick, who's the manager for HCI construction. I know he's involved in those projects. He kind of oversees those, but he's usually not the day-to-day type person that that we need throughout construction. Jamie and Nick Richter, Jamie Chamberlain and Nick Richter, were the ones that are assigned to this project or would be assigned to this project. And I'm not answering your question very well. I'm concerned that if we award this project, the other 4 projects that we're just working on the planning right now, but we are going to have to move forward on those other 4 projects quickly also, in the next 6 months or so. It's a tough call. I mean, I like HCI construction, and I think they have good people up there. And and I've said this before, that we've had problems before with HCI construction, over the last 20 years. But when there's a problem, they're very responsive, and they do not want to wind up in front of your guys' table, because that's happened to us before over the last, it hasn't been over the last 10 years probably, but they used to do that. They'd wind up in front of the tribal council, and they don't want to do that anymore. But I don't know, they're responsive. I think we got 2 good contractors here. But Boyd Jones is a larger scale contractor, to where if you drive down in downtown Omaha right now, you'll see some of those downtown projects. You'll see big Boyd Jones signs up on those. They're big players, and they're very interested in this project. And like I said, they're trying to get established in Norfolk. And they'd like to get, this would be a good project for them also. I feel that, they-
That's the way I believe. And they would have never put in a bid if they couldn't cut the mustard. So I'm in support of HCI to get this. There are other projects that the tribe is going to do. We'll just take them bid by bid.
Thanks, Lorelai. So looking at these score sheets, 3 out of the 5 people said HCI, 2 of the people picked Boyd. So that's what the score sheets say. Isaac?
I just want to know in this child care project, I'm willing to vote with whoever's going to build the best storm shelter in that facility. And brings up another discussion. I got a phone call from one of the engineers on that project for fire suppression, and talking about a sprinkler system in that, and then this daycare, this facility is going to have kids in there 24 hours. Kind of reading between the lines, was kind of more or less asking for a waiver to be signed off of, we'll put the sprinkler system in there, but we're going to run a little garden hose to run the sprinkler system, and that there's no point in that. And so we went in and had another meeting on that, and one of the big things that the tribe always sells themselves short of is the water supply to these big buildings. And I'm gonna push like crazy because with this building, this new building with these kids, we need to have at least a minimum of 8-inch main running to that facility. The reason for that is to support that sprinkler system if we're gonna have kids in there. And the reason why I say that is because with our department and our members that we have on our department, that's all these bigger buildings with more compartments and more people staying in them at longer hours. It really makes you worry as being a first responder of how relaxed Winnebago has become and has room to improve. But these sprinkler systems and these safety shelters, these safety factors that we're in the planning stages of these buildings now, I want to keep bringing that up, and I'm going to continue to keep bringing that up because it makes it a little bit easier and a little bit safer when we're able to put these things into place ahead of time. The storm shelters, they always get cut out, and then the sprinkler systems, we had a senior citizens complex that burned down, and today we have a brand new one that doesn't even have a sprinkler system in it. And I'm just gonna always push for sprinkler systems in all the new buildings and big pipes running to them so they can supply the water to those buildings and storm shelters. Because Winnebago's number is probably coming sometime, we have a lot of people that go out and offer prayers, tobacco, all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, you never know when a storm will come through here. So if we have those things in place ahead of time, it makes it a little bit safer, more comfortable to be in these buildings. So I just wanted to put that into place as we move forward with some of these projects. Just kind of looking at those with our water systems. Thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. Coley?
Thank you. I got one question. As we play this game with the ARPA funds, are we taxing ourselves, construction tax, or is that like a break we're giving ourselves?
No, all these companies are paying 3% construction tax
So that's
on
going
every
to
project.
tax.
We're collecting that by the tax commission.
Okay,
collects
that's
that.
great. That's good for us, so that money can go.
Yeah, so every one of these jobs, we're making even a little bit more on.
That's good. And I guess another comment on the construction. With all the complaints that we've been hearing about the Ho Chunk Center, talking with the heating and cooling system, so what was discovered was that heating and cooling system was too small for that building. So that was designed and constructed by who? And we look at all those problems we're having out there. Those are the things that need to be corrected for the future. And I hope companies, are correcting themselves and building our buildings right. Especially the heating out there to the Ho Chunk Center. And the cooling, as they say, that system that was put in there and designed is too small for that building. So those are things that we need to, be aware of and look at, for the future of our buildings, that they're built right, and that just don't sound right, to build buildings without no sprinkler systems. And as we go into it with this money, I think we have to really look at what buildings we want first, and make sure that money is there, you know, for the Boys and Girls Club and what's important to us. You know, last release is our tribal administration building. You know, we can downsize that somehow, but you know, just make sure our buildings are built properly and strong and well put together. The heating and cooling, the fire systems, and so on, escape routes. But that's good with the taxation. We're playing it good, and it goes into that program, and it may be spent well. Thanks.
Thanks, Coley. So on the comments we've heard, Kenny, did you want to say anything else?
If I were gonna weigh in on it, I would want to talk to Ron Noor all by myself. I don't think he wants to, and that's professional of him. I don't think he wants to be public in what his real opinions are about it. But I think as a council member, I don't think he would lead us astray in his opinion. I've seen how he works, and we're really lucky to have him. There may be failures here and there, but every project, when it's completed, that's why they have checklists. And sometimes they're not caught on those checklists. But I would base my vote on what Ron Noor would say to me privately. That's how much confidence I have in his concern for this community and its growth.
Thanks, Kenny. So Ron?
I'd like to respond to what Isaac said, maybe just briefly on what Foley's comments were. On the fire and emergency building, Isaac, we're working on the planning for that building right now, and we have very few 8-inch mains in the community, but right in front of the fire station, we do have an 8-inch main. That's the main transmission line that we have for the whole community. And, we will tie into that, and the fire suppression system, it will meet, international building codes for that building. But I think, probably more importantly is that the daycare project that we're actually doing the design on right now. These other projects, as you're aware, we're just doing, we're working on the planning. On the daycare building, we're working on the design and the fire suppression system. And we have a 6-inch main, that was put in a few years ago, in the east ditch. The highway, runs, the 6-inch runs clear out to the Pony, and then I think it drops down to a 3-inch. It goes out, past Robbins and out, past Armel's. But we've got a 6-inch main in the highway ditch right across from the daycare, and we've been working with Daly's fire suppression people. And what they've asked for is static for that location, which static pressure is just, what the pressure would be, like during non-demand times. And then for residual pressures, which is a pressure, during like maybe 7 o'clock in the evening or 7 o'clock in the morning, when there's a, pretty good demand for water. We have Indian Health Service has our entire water system, and it's called a Hardy Cross model. And they've provided just this week, just in the last few days, provided they put what's called a node, basically plug it into, straight across the highway from the daycare facility, and they'll flow it, to see how much water they can pull off of that without dropping any of the system below 20 psi. And they've estimated that we can get, somewhere around 700 to 800 gallons a minute if we put, if we bring hydrants or bring a 6-inch main into the daycare facility. And then also, I just got it from Rick Huffman yesterday, because JEO has our system on their model also, they're the city engineers. And they sent me just a hard copy of the map that shows, it was just like a contour of, pressures for fire flow or fire flow volumes. And they have it estimated around 750 gallons per minute available at that location also. And I don't know if, I think 750 gallons a minute, and I'm not, Isaac, I don't pretend to know as much about fire suppression as you do, but we've got around 700 or 800 gallons a minute that's going to be available, at the location of the daycare facility. And then on the storm shelter, we have, I think it's either 2 or 3 concrete reinforced storm shelters that are being designed as part of the daycare project at this time. So, I know that, there's been a ton of meetings and, a lot of them been on the daycare project. And, if you miss a couple of them, there's a lot of things we've been talking about, but we are adequately, providing water or fire suppression. And we're also including the concrete storm shelters in the daycare building. So I think we are doing that. I think we're going to continue to talk about that, and we can talk about it more. When the Leo Daily meets with the council here, I think it's maybe next week or the week after, whenever it's going to be. We can bring it up at that time also. And then for Coley's comment on the heating and cooling system, I'm not in disagreement with what he said. We may have an undersized air handler or heating system out there. We have had problems over the years with, we don't have, facilities doesn't, I think they help with the maintenance out there, but I don't think, that they don't get paid for maintaining that building like they do other buildings, that are their responsibility. And we've had problems with, with restricted airflow because the filters don't get changed properly. And those fans that are out in the, in the big room, those are intended, with that type of a facility or, that shape of facility, we have a lot of the hot air goes up to the ceiling, and, we need to make sure we get those fans on. So we blow some of that hot air down in the wintertime and pull it up in the summertime. But, we had, that was a different architect that we had involved in that. And, that's been 15 years ago or whatever, probably about 15 years ago. I can't remember who the mechanical engineer was on that. But it's my understanding that that it's time to upgrade that system and to upsize it also to try and get better better heating and cooling out in the main big room. That's all I had, Tori.
Let me take you a little bit to school here a little bit. 6-inch main,
Sure.
700 to 800 GPMs. It's like taking a straw and sucking it out of a 5-gallon bucket when it comes to fighting fires. We have our truck over there. One of our trucks run 1,250 gallons per minute when that truck is ready to fight fires, and we have to have it at that for NFPA standards, saying you're doing the bare minimum in the NFPA standards to fight a fire. And our other truck, that ladder truck, is a 1,500 gallons per minute truck. Winnebago's water system, if we hook those trucks up and use them the way they're supposed to be used, will not support either one of those trucks. And so I asked the engineer, I said, the one that was supposed to be working on the fire suppression for this daycare, I said, do you know what a gallon of water weighs? And didn't get an answer. And I said, well, I'll let you know. I said, you could Google that, and you're going to come out with a debate of 8.3 gallons, or you're going to come out with 8.5. I said, but you as an engineer, I said, I would play it safe and say 1 gallon of water weighs 9 pounds. So, and we kind of laughed it off and didn't think nothing, but that's the kind of response that scares me, because the people that we hire and bring in here to do good jobs for Winnebago, at the end of the day, they get to drive away. And it's going to be us guys that are left here that are 2, 3 in the morning knocking on a window or trying to go around to the back of that building and get these kids out while we're peeking in a smoke-filled window and seeing them laying on the floor. That's the reality. The other thing that I see with that project is the back of the building where the kids are going to be in the 24 hours, the pavement stops. There's no way to drive a vehicle completely around this building. So they come up with what they call geo-webbing. What is geo-webbing? I asked the engineer that. She said, that's not my field. I'm not going to get into that. I don't know nothing about that. But basically, geo-webbing is basically a plastic net that's laid down in the grass that's reinforced with being compacted. So if you drive a big heavy fire truck in the grass with a plastic net on it and you put water to there, that fire truck's going to get stuck. It's just common sense. But I just bring these things up, you know, and try to inject these thoughts and feelings and ideas now at the time in the planning stage. And I'm just, what I'm getting at, Ron, is I'm just pushing to have a big main to that water, to that daycare. If we sell ourselves short on any building, I just don't want it to be that building with those kids in there, because that's gonna weigh heavy on people's minds that aren't able to do their very best to get in to try to help these kids out if something goes on. So as we move forward, I want to let you know that in a good way that we can let's try to get a big main over there, and let's loop it. If we do loop that, here's the plus side. If we do loop that water system with a big main, then that's also going to help out those houses in the 2.0 because it'll bring up the water pressure. The more system we loop, the better off. And you know, it's just like preaching to the choir, sharing this with you, but I'm just kind of sharing it with the rest of the council. The more loops that we have in our water system, the better it is. It's when we run into these dead ends that we end up with stagnant water at these dead ends, and it calls for bad quality water. So I just wanted to share that, Ron. If we move forward and let's try to push to get a big main into that area. So I just wanted to say those kind of things too. I know I missed a couple of those meetings on that, and that's my fault, you know, but at the same time, we're still in the early stages of being able to fix these things. So
Thanks, Isaac. Ron, did you want to respond?
Yeah, and I'll try and keep this brief. Isaac has obviously a good understanding of the hydraulics in a water distribution system, and I think he's maybe underestimating the fire suppression people with Leo Daly, and sometimes those guys they're kind of quiet. They're the engineers are not always communicate that well. But Leo Daly has the very best people in the United States working for him, and they know that cubic feet of water weighs 62.4 pounds, and there's 7.48 gallons in a cubic feet of water. They understand all that, and Isaac's been involved in almost every meeting that we've had, and he's been extremely helpful. And when Leo Daly calls for a meeting, they want to know if Isaac's going to be there to help address some of these issues. I'm concerned that if we have fire trucks that are rated at 1,250 gallons, that maybe that's the total capacity. And I know that there's always a concern about the suction when you've got that big of a pump. That there's always a potential for compromising the water mains, because you can collapse water mains if you put too much suction on them. And I think that's probably the concern. But I don't think we have anywhere in town where, according to the Indian Health Service maps and JEO's maps, that we can produce fire flows in that range. So that's something we should talk about. And Isaac, I can send you what I sent Daly's fire suppression people just this week on from Indian Health Service on their flows, and also what JEO has created. So I'll send that to you. But we have mostly 6-inch mains through the whole town, with some 8-inch main. And the other thing I was going to tell you was we just got verbal approval this week that one of our SDS projects that we had submitted 6 months ago or last fall is going to be approved. And what it is it's to tie in from, it would be the southeast corner of Village 1.0, up just kind of where we ended our paving up there, that new paving on BI 52, and then it's going to go back to the south from there and tie in. I'm not sure exactly where. I don't know if we've got, that determined yet, but we're gonna run an 8-inch loop all the way, like where, Brian had talked about, trying to get a road, brought across that area, like that would come up, somewhere maybe between Liz Walker's and that Prosper's old house, somewhere up through there. But we are going to loop an 8-inch main, which, and Isaac knows that, if you run that alignment gets us as close to the tanks and an 8-inch main all the way over to Ho-Chunk Village. So, we've made that loop. And then we also, 2 years ago, we made the loop that ties in under the buffalo pasture into Village 1.0. So we're continuing to try and loop the system. Our system's, kind of elongated, north and south, but we're doing everything we can to try and continue to make those loops for, not just fire flows, but water quality is, probably the thing that, most people notice is when we don't have, good velocity in those pipes, we wind up with, with sediment, especially with the poor treated water quality that we have. We're planning to move forward with the reverse osmosis system that I think is going to, it's going to alleviate the water quality issues that we have. You guys have set monies away from that, aside from that. And also we have the commitment, a verbal commitment from Indian Health Service. I talked to Dave Johnson last week and he said, yes, it's going to be approved. He said he thought all of our projects on our list were going to be approved. That's how flush IHS is right now. And it also includes all the new meters for the villages system also. So Isaac, if you would continue to participate in these meetings, it would be very, very helpful. Especially when we're talking about,
All right, good comments. Thank you everyone for contributing to the discussion. With that, is there a motion to approve a contractor for the Human Services Daycare Project Building CRM contractor selection?
Make a motion to approve Boyd Jones.
We have a motion by Eric to approve Boyd Jones, to select Boyd Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Isaac. Discussion. Objection to the motion.
Jack?
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand or say aye. Eric, Isaac, no. Opposed? Kenny, Brian, Lorelei, Louis. Abstentions? Coley had a
I was yes.
yes. Coley. Rona did. So 3-5-0, motion failed.
Make a motion to approve HCI construction for the Human Services Daycare Project.
We have a motion by Lorelei. Do we have a second? We have a second by Kenny. Discussion. Objection to the motion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Lorelei, Rona, Kenny, Brian. Opposed?
Abstain.
Opposed? Isaac, Eric. Abstentions? We got one. Let's see. Were you in favor, Louis, or did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you voted
So-
with us.
We got 5. We got 6, 2, 1. Motion approved. Thank you,
No, it's
council.
five.
Is it 5?
Yeah.
5-1.
2-1. 5-2-1. Thank you. Motion approved. that brings us to old business. Adopt resolution approving Teresa Rachel presenting officer. So as you know, council, there was ongoing email traffic on this, and Lorelai, as our secretary, has been trying to make sure we have all our resolutions in place. Lorelai, did you want to comment on this?
Yes, I've been talking back and forth, and I've always kept the chairwoman aware that in the Constitution, anytime we fix a fee and we're going to pay somebody to do legal work, it's required to have a resolution and then go to the BIA. So the tribal court got a grant from the Department of Justice and to hire an attorney as an employee to be a presenting officer. And the other word for presenting officer is prosecutor. So they brought her on January 4th or 5th, but she's only probationary. So she'll complete and become a full-time employee on April, where do I got it at? April 4th. So the BIA requires we put the approval of an attorney far enough out where the regional director can sign it. So I put her permanent date that she would become permanent on this resolution. So every time, so everybody's aware, whether it's a contract or we employ an attorney to be an attorney, it's in the Constitution that we have to approve it, whether by contract, as long as we're fixing a fee, and that would be salary even. So the general counsel instructed us that we might want to consider removing that from the in a secretarial election in the future. So it's just something we need to think about. Because we shouldn't have to have the Great White Father approve whether we want to hire an attorney or not for any of our matters for the tribe. So that's why we have to do this, because she'll be permanent April 4th.
Is this the same one that was almost hired by a tribal member
Yes.
and then ended up going to work
Yes.
down there? Oh, okay.
So with that, what's the resolution number that we will need?
2261.
22. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 2261?
And this is to adopt this for this lawyer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this lady, she's already working over there.
Yeah. She's under probationary until April 4th, and then she would go permanent. So we're approving if she makes it to permanent, that she would be approved.
How long has she been working with us?
Since January 5th or 4th as a probationary.
Would we be able to extend her probation?
Yeah, if it does. I mean, I don't know, it's up to Terry. He's the acting court administrator.
Because I think I would be in agreement of extending her probationary period. Because from what I understand is the trouble we're having with the children up on a hill. She's coming in to defend them, our program, and so our children aren't going to be able to move in with come back to their families from what she's coming in to do. And I know we just been going through a lot of trouble with this within the last few months of having our children returned, and now our program is going to hire a lawyer to defend them, and then our children aren't going to be able to come home the way we'd like them to come home. And so she would be kind of working against us, to say the least. And so that's why I'd like to see her probationary period extended, because we still have a lot of cases that we're looking at, and children that haven't come home yet, and they weren't doing their job accordingly. We still have tribal council motions that have been made that haven't been followed, and this individual will be going against those motions. And I haven't even had an update yet on these motions that were made, that the council has made for them to return children. And those children, there's one child in particular that still hasn't been returned home. And that this lady's gonna keep this child from even getting home. So I that's where I kind of see a problem with this, and this individual shut down a private practice to come work for us down here, and our children we're trying to get home, bringing the families back together. I just see as contradicting to what we're trying to do. So we're trying to get our children home, but yet we're going to hire an individual to come in and defend the individuals making those decisions to get our children home. That's kind of contradicting. So that's why I'm just saying I'd like to see that probationary period extended, or to not even hire this individual until we can get on the same page of what we're trying to do with our children. Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Eric, I just want to comment on this. The tribal court, prior to what we found out was going on in our child and family services, they put in for this grant. The tribal court did. And we don't have enough prosecutor time in our court, but we'll know more once we have our tribal court assessment. So the tribal court put in and got this grant wanting another prosecutor for their cases. Child and Family Services, and I believe it's juvenile. So the grant itself was applied for a long time ago, and they just got awarded and hired for it. So the grant already took place. So when this woman was brought on, they advertised and they brought her on. So if we don't want that position, then turn the grant back. You know, and let the court know. But we were awarded the grant, and she was hired under what we agreed to do under that grant. So, and this was before my time. So, but I don't know how that affects future applications we do to the Department of Justice. I don't know. So I think we should hear it from Linnell on this, because I believe it was under her administration where this grant was applied for. She used to be the administrator on this grant.
Brian?
I think to add to some of the commentary with this, from my perspective, is that I don't want to, it's going to sound kind of mild, but it really isn't, is that the overall confusion that has occurred within the adjudication process for any type of placement or removal with CFS and then in tandem with the court seems to be perpetual. There doesn't seem to be an end to it at this point, and I think that's my point that I want to make more specifically today. So if we're going to even consider taking any action, plus or minus, regarding this position, I want to make sure that it's working to reunify these families, not work to split a family further apart or pretend that it's trying to defend the rights of a child against their parent when the child didn't even want to leave their parent. Because the tenant that seems to be operated under from the previous Health and Human Services Administration seems to be unwavering at this point and unmitigated, meaning that it hasn't changed, or it hasn't changed in a conspicuous enough way to be noticed, especially by the elected membership around this table. So I'm not necessarily sure that I can support this. I understand what its tenet was under the grant application process, but because that entire process seems to work to facilitate the further split and rift between a family, parents and children respectively, I can't see beyond the confusion at this point.
Thanks, Brian. And so for the membership's information, since Thanksgiving, the tribal council has been heavily engaged and in the, I would say, in the oversight of the Human Services Department, and we do have a new director, so we're very happy to have that person on board and counting on his leadership to pick that program up and the council has just been really anxious because of the hardships that our families have had trying to work with that program, and we're just picking up the pieces, and this contract here is a part of that because we felt like some of our families were being victimized by some of the actions of the program, and it created a lot of hardship for the families and hurt feelings from all those involved. So it's moving in the right direction, but I can hear that the council still is uncertain about hiring people that go against our families. So the way I was trying to think about this is some of these children that find themselves as wards of the Winnebago tribe are in this program. And so the way this grant is probably written and how it's probably perceived, but the way that we perceive it is that it's going against the family, and then they perceive it as they're advocating for this child. So I definitely hear the disconnect in what was happening and what the intentions of the grant were and what should be happening in the program. So I'm really going to count on Ms. Gu's leadership, and I think we got to give him a chance. But the way that the council is so heavily, no, I wouldn't say heavily, it was kind of embarrassing. It was kind of embarrassing to know that all this while that some of these things were happening. And so the action and the follow-through has been really strong on behalf of the council, so thank you for that. And now that we have Ms. Gu, who we met with and was a really forthcoming in what he wants for that program, and I think we want the same things. So does anybody else want to comment? I'm just wanted to bring it together and
Well,
Yeah, just a quick
can the council see a copy of the grant or a summary of the grant? Because this is not human services, this is
the court.
funded to the court.
Right.
So if you guys wanna see what the grant applied for and is intending to do before you make a decision, we can get that for the council, so you can read it. Cause it's actually a tribal court grant they applied for, not human services.
So I was muddying the waters. But so this tribal court, I'm gonna call it advocate because I don't know what else to call it, is a part of this human services dynamic because they're supposed to be representing the child, and we were feeling that the family wasn't represented. So, Coley had a comment for you, Eric.
Yeah, I'll support the resolution to get this lady going and working, but also I want to make a comment and about our tribal court and what we're going through. They're tied in with human services and go back years when we had that survey, and where that survey said things are going real good, hunky dory, and they weren't. So with this thing that's coming up with the tribal court, that
The
assessment, so maybe survey 2, the employees are gone now, so hopefully we find out what's going on, and like I said, with both those departments, we need to come to work and just get back to the basics and do the work to help our people. So I hope, I just hope it doesn't come out to be like human services was in a few years. So that's all.
Thanks, Coley. Eric had a comment.
Yes, I would actually like to see this grant before I would like to approve anything. It says effective April 4th, 2022. She's been working here for how long already? So again, that's kind of contradictory on the beginning date. And this individual closed down her own business to come work for us, and it's not even taken effect until April 4th. And one more thing is, since we're approving it, I'd like to have her introduce herself to the council, and so we can have a little bit of dialogue one-on-one to see where she's at and what she's trying to do. Because it's been too many years of trying to destroy the indigenous people of this country through adoption and adopting our kids off our reservation, and to have individuals that are non-native come in and keep our native children from us and put them off the reservation. So that's why I'd kind of like to see, have her come and introduce herself to the council and have some, so we can have some one-on-one dialogue. So hopefully she will work with us instead of against us. That's just what I would like to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
I need to have a clearer picture of what we're looking at. We have a court. We need a prosecutor. We need defense. We need all of these things. Even if we don't like the prosecutor. The prosecutor in favor of what we're talking about could stop some of those cases going through the court. So a good prosecutor would benefit the tribe. That's in tune with what we're talking about. I need to see that structure so that we as a council know how to look at them, evaluate, and pick people in the court that respond to the needs of the tribe as we define them. I see, watching what happened in Pender with tribal people, they had prosecutors that were against Indian people. And they ended up with a law that tribal people would be, public intoxication would be a reason to throw them in jail. And they continued that. They got a bill that paid the county to keep us jail for. So they turned the whole thing around and used it as a system to make money off of Indian people by throwing the winos in jail. That did no justice to anyone. And the way they can come up with things to be anti-Indian is unreal. The same people who came up with issues to deal with problems that those Indian people were having, to deal with the problem of alcohol, to deal with the problem the veterans are having. They could have dealt with the issues instead of dealing with getting more money for Thurston County. I want to see how we're looking at that, because my opinions have changed because of what took place. We gotta look at a way to strengthen the system. And we gotta do it in conjunction with what we're doing in making a change to the child welfare system, because we gotta make we have to change both, the court and the welfare system. But we gotta make them fit like a glove, hand in hand. That's easy to say, but our work is cut out. I don't think we'll ever reach as low as the Bureau has reached. They allowed the adoption system to grow and develop under their hand. I got so damn mad one day I went over and told Al Bray, you cut this adoption shit out. And I should have had a resolution, I should have had a motion, but I was so mad I gave him hell. And he quit. And I think he felt guilty about signing those adoption papers. And he quit. But it's because we interviewed 2 children some white people brought, trying to find their home. They want them reunited with their family. And those kids were too small when they left. They couldn't identify their family. And we saw children that had no identity. You knew they were Indian, but there were no way to prove it. We would never reach that far. But we have drastic things happening. And I want to see them change. So, we have a contract here. We have to fulfill the contract. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. So what I'm hearing from Louis is that, you know, enough is enough, that we need systematic change and we need prosecutors that want to reunite our families, and we need these advocate workers like the resolution before us that are working to reunite these families and not giving them a hard time and just taking joy in their hardship. You know, we want them to be their biggest encourager, to say, you can do this. This is what you got to do, and I'm going to hold your hand. And so how about we ask Esther to bring some of those folks so we can meet them and just talk about what our intentions are and what we're looking forward to their work for the tribe to accomplish. And then we need to table this. So
Okay.
Lorelei.
I just want to share something. I'm really proud of our Winnebago comprehensive healthcare system. I worked in the health department. I was a nurse. And when we switched over to the tribe, took over the hospital, one of the very first things that they talked about and put into place was every employee that came on got an orientation to our Winnebago ways. And they get it, it was done through the museum. And it was beautiful. I went to like 2 different sessions. And maybe we need to do that. We can use that same presentation, because it's on tape now, and require that every new employee that comes into the Winnebago tribe has to sit down and watch that. So that way they get a little of who we are before they start performing whatever is their job that they're going to be doing. It's already made. The WCHS has every new employee see that. So we could be using that over here too. It's already, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So just bringing that up too, and I learned a lot myself, and I thought, you know, at least I know a few things, but I really learned a lot from those about my own people. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lorelei. So is there a motion to table this resolution?
Make a motion to table.
We have a motion by Eric to table. We have a second by Brian. Discussion. Objection to.
Quick discussion, just quick
Chloe.
comment. I think when talking about reconstructing these contracts with our judges, that it says in that contract, you need to reunite our children with their parents. So it's easy to get out of that contract. Easy. So it says that, bold. If you're not doing that, then we can terminate your contract. Easy.
Do you want that put on general counsel to modify existing contracts?
For discussion, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion on the table. Is any further discussion on this motion? Objection to the motion? Motion carried 8-0-0. The next one was adopt amended resolution 22-44A. Is that related to this?
No, this one is.
The land.
I apologize to the family on this. If you see it, back on December 16th, the tribal council approved an ILCA land sale to the tribal member you see on the resolution. Oh, sorry. Back on December 16th, the tribal council approved a ILCA land sale on the name of the individual you see on the resolution. He sold to us using ILCA, Indian Land Consolidation Funds monies. And it was based on a BIA where they get the worth of the land. What do they call it? Inventory? Anyway, the BIA got the worth of the land, and so they prepared the resolution, and we approved it. And that was December 16th. And then week before last, the family got a hold of finance and said, we still haven't gotten paid the check. So I sent it back to land management, and it turns out that the BIA told them, and I asked for a write-up on this, and I haven't gotten one. But land management said that the BIA miscalculated the worth of the land and it needs to be changed. But then whoever had it at the BIA didn't do anything about it. So it was sitting all this time. So the tribal member did not ever get his check. And nothing was told to him. So the BIA turned around and got the correct cost of the land. There's a new resolution in here. Some of the money will be, most of it will come from ILCA, and the remaining portion will come out of tribal appropriations funds that land management has. So we're amending the original resolution with the correct worth of the land. And so that we can see our tribal member get his money for his land he wanted to sell to the tribe. And I apologize to his family for, we weren't aware that this didn't even go through. So that's what this is.
Sounds like my situation.
Yep. So, thank you, Lorelei, for seeing this through. And with that is our motion to adopt Resolution 22-44A. We have a motion by Rona. Do we have a second? Second by Brian. Discussion. Objection to the motion? Motion carried 8-0-0. Council, that brings us into tribal council items. I had an oversight and I need to ask for a motion to suspend the rules so we can appoint Kenny. Do we have a motion to suspend the rules so we can add that item? We have a motion by Rona. Do we have a second? Second by Brian. Discussion? Objection to the motion? Motion carried 8-0-0. So under tribal council items, council, I would like to add as our first item, appoint Kenny Mallory to fulfill the vacated tribal council seat. So do we have a motion to appoint Kelly, per constitution, appoint Kenny Mallory to fill the vacated tribal council seat?
It has to say as the qualified
Okay.
candidate.
Oh.
By the special vote, they made him the qualified
Okay.
candidate.
Is there a motion to appoint Kenny Mallory as the qualified candidate from the special vote?
Make that motion.
We have a motion by Eric. We have a second by Brian. Discussion.
Discussion, thank you. Not to be all technical and stuff and how we're doing things there, Robert's, but then Kenny made a motion, our second one earlier. How's that gonna fly? But we're okay, we'll be okay. We'll be all right.
We
Well, he
forgot to
was
do
sworn
it.
in.
Yeah, there you go, we're all right.
Yeah, I was like, shoot. I forgot to do that.
We'll be okay.
Okay, well, I apologize, council, and to Kenny as well for being a little goofy this morning. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Objection to the motion? Motion carried 8-0-0. It's official.
Yeah, it's official. Congratulations and welcome back.
So, council, now is a good segue. I have to leave for an eye appointment, so I'd like to turn the chair over to Vice Chairman Chamberlain. Thank you.
Vice Chairman, you feel comfortable just kind of switching out?
Yeah, I can if you want. It's up to you. You guys, I brought some muffins if you want some.
Between, oh yeah. Yeah.
Blueberry, banana nut.
I will try
Are
to.
they gonna put drops in your eyes?
They might. Yeah, they are. I'll try right here.
Okay.
From here, I got the second one.
Okay.
I'm gonna make some changes on the table. Move that, move this. Yeah, move myself.
Sit on the end.
Yeah, but I don't think that table is heavy enough.
Can we take a 5 minute?
You guys wanna do a little 5 minute or?
Sure.
We're gonna do a little 5 minute recess.
Tori, leave it.
So, it's 10:51, so let's reconvene. The next item that we have, tribal council items, the grant, number one, grant request. Nebraska Medal of Honor highway signs. This is an email that the tribe received just a few days ago, or last week, from a gentleman based here in Thurston County. He's basically putting together an effort looking for sponsors to assist in reaching a $5,500 goal to cover the cost of 100 signs. The signs are 24 by 24 and placed under the community's population sign, so each of the towns. And basically what it is are signs that are meant to honor the Nebraska Medal of Honor Foundation and individuals from the communities, or ergo the tribe in this matter, who have received such honor. And naturally here in Winnebago, I believe that is the esteemed Mitchell Red Cloud. And so what they're looking for are assistance and a request for sponsorship. The council have interest in providing sponsorship to them. Yep, Lorelei.
Mr. Vice Chair, according to this Daryl Harrison's letter, there's 2 Winnebago recipients of the Medal of Honor, because he only names Mitchell Red Cloud, but he says we would be qualified for 2, so there's another one. So there would be 2 if we sponsor them for Nebraska, or for Winnebago.
Is that second one John Rice?
I believe
it?
so, yes.
Yeah.
I think there was some confusion from his perspective because they may not necessarily be listed as residents of the community. So, but either way, they're still, that's what they're looking for. They're reaching their goal. They're looking to reach their goal of $5,500. So he's not asking for a specific amount, so I guess it's pretty much up to the council, whatever they want to provide, if any.
Well, there's a question for me, what I consider. And I don't see a difference between Wisconsin Winnebagos and Nebraska Winnebagos.
Right.
We're the same people. We're drifted apart. They have a separate government. But when it comes down to people, we're the same. Mitchell Red Cloud's daughter came to the Winnebago powwow one year, and they had an honor dance for her. And they recognized what Red Cloud Mitchell did. It was in Korea, and they got, a unit got shot up, and Mitchell had his group tie him up to a tree so he could be wrecked when he shot a machine gun and shoot it to North Koreans. He killed him, but he saved his unit. I got a picture of him. Can't think of the artist's name. Shows in action. Why the Wisconsin Winnebagos wouldn't want to help? I don't understand. But I think we've got to honor him. Because white people don't understand Well, you got Wisconsin Winnebagos and Nebraska Winnebagos. They went home. The Nebraska Winnebagos went home, snuck home. They're scattered all over the state. But I wouldn't mind paying for the whole amount. You're not arguing with them. And make an explanation to this fellow. And we're one people. When we got into the Indian Claims Act that was to pay us for that land, the tribes drafted a resolution. The one comment is that we are one people. I can't find that resolution. But we met. Sterling noticed that they don't have anything. All the questions we're coming up with, they don't have anything. They don't have any answers. So we'll put together some resolutions that have solutions to the answers there. So we put it all together. And I think it was Neola said we're one tribe. Just put together a resolution saying we're one tribe, one people. It'd be good to have that put into our document that we send to this fellow. And that honoring of Wisconsin Winnebago is honoring us. I just wonder how we're going to do it.
Yep. Isaac. Yeah. It's stuck on the table.
Yeah.
So that
I was the one that I got some of this information and then kind of researched a little bit of it and stuff and was looking at this and I'm in agreements of sponsoring the whole amount and 5,500 to have those signs put up along Highway 20 on behalf of Mitchell Red Cloud, being a whole chunk and then continuing to help out and make our way. And one of the things that comes to my mind is that a lot of the stories and stuff that you hear of some of the veterans that were behind enemy lines and took on fire, some of their thoughts and feelings that they had was before they had to make some of those decisions that they did, they talk about they thought about home, they thought about their people as their people. And going along with what Louis is talking about, they thought about our people as one. Wherever our Winnebagos were, our Ho-Chunks were, they thought about them as one. And I can't imagine what that feeling is like when you have to make those kind of decisions. But that's where I kind of stand behind this wholeheartedly with making sure that this happens, because they're just asking for a certain amount, a request, but I would make that motion to go ahead and pay that whole 5,500 just to see that this project continues to go through and to support what they're trying to do on behalf of not only our veterans but veterans across the country that stood for us in that time of need. So with that, I make a motion to sponsor the 5,500 of the Nebraska Medal of Honor Foundation on behalf of Mitchell Red Cloud.
it's also potentially John Rice. So there's two. Eric?
I'll like to say I agree with this as well. You know, we're always about honoring our veterans, past, present, future, and to know that we have had individuals achieve such a high standard in the military community, and they sacrifice their lives to do that, and now to know that the government or the state is honoring this, knowing that Highway 20 is going to be known as the Medal of Honor Highway going across the whole country, and for us to be part of that. And so with that, I'll second the motion. Thank you.
So I have a motion by Isaac, second by Eric, to sponsor the grant request, Nebraska Medal of Honor Highway, in the amount of $5,500. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Lorelei?
Can the people that made the motion identify the source of funding for this 5,500?
I guess, Rona, could I call on your help? Do you have any ideas
General
where?
support budget.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it would be, is, general support budget. But the 100 signs, they're not gonna be, they're gonna be for, you know, like you said, all veterans, up and down 20 across Nebraska. But, we're only gonna get 2 signs out of this for us, so I don't know if you still wanna sponsor the whole amount, or, cause it's gonna be all veterans, not
Yeah.
just,
I
not just
I
our
would
Winnebago
still be in
veterans.
favor just because we have, there's a Winnebago in there, a whole chunk in there.
Mhm.
I would still be in support
There's
of
two,
that.
well, two veterans, and we'll get 2 signs.
He only lists one.
Yeah.
He only lists 1, yeah, so.
Okay.
But we'll work on it. See,
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Kenny?
What do you mean by we'll work on it? Is it
Well,
something we can
it's-
do
it's-
if we
it's
pass
the-
it?
if we pass it, we'll have to look for the money out of discretionary funds or whatever they have. We have some in our donation pot, but that probably shoulda came up before it came to a vote.
I'd like to say, if 5,500 pays more than 2 signs, that I think it would help out the state with some of their other shortcomings for them to put more signs up. So Highway 20 is acknowledged by all the individuals that drive down that road. So it's not just about us, it's about the veterans, of helping the other communities with their veteran signs, because we know there's a lot of little communities out there that might not be able to afford it, or that might need some help. And so I'd still be in agreement with helping them if they need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
A veteran is a
Kenny?
veteran, you know?
Yeah, if you Google Mr. Red Cloud, it'll pop up that about his award, and there's articles in there about Red Cloud.
Call for the question.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carried, 700. Item number 2, the Blair, Nebraska Cub Scout Pack 232 Service Project. We also received an email from their troop leader, so to speak, looking for an opportunity to allow that Cub Scout troop to provide a requirement of community service. And they would like to reach out to one of the indigenous tribes of the state to provide some type of activity. Isaac?
I have a comment to make on that. One of the things, looking at this, and Jim was a big pusher on this. He'd always make sure that we got a hold of these different groups and organizations to bring in these kids right before powwow and to kind of fix up the powwow grounds. And I'm not too for sure if that happened last year. I think it was just because of the pandemic and stuff like that. But just throwing this out there for the rest of the table to think about is that might be something that we would be able to invite these Cub Scouts in and to be a part of and to help participate, is to maybe coming through and doing some work out at the powwow grounds, and then kind of explaining to them what it is, the significance of the powwow is. So that way they could have a little bit of understanding, then maybe even invite them back if it's possible to come in and actually see powwow in full swing, you know. So just kind of thinking like that, I throw that out there for the table to think about.
Isaac, or excuse me, Eric?
I was just gonna say the same thing, and knowing that they're Cub Scouts, that might encourage them to even join the military. And if they're that close, that they can also bring their families, if they're helping clean that area up prior to our annual homecoming celebration, that might inspire them to bring their parents and their family to partake and see what they've done for our community, so they can also enjoy the homecoming celebration themselves. So just another angle on that. And so I would be in agreement to point them in the direction of the powwow committee. And I think that'd be one of the greatest things for them, within our community. It's an annual celebration, and that's for everyone. And I think that just would make sense. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Or any other areas of activity? Remember, the Cub Scouts, so these are younger boys. They're not Boy Scouts, so we're talking, the younger age.
I wonder if there's
Got a whole
get them
bunch of
involved
bleachers.
with that gardening program.
Good. Okay. I think
They're
what we,
not gonna be,
what,
they're not gonna be much help. And little boys, they got short interest span, so you can work with them, show them the house, show them the gardening project, have them do things. But they're fun. Crazy little boys, honestly. They're around little kids. But they could participate when that farmer's market is open.
I think what we can do is reach out to the troop leader and see if he has a little bit more specific idea of what they would be capable of participating in, as well as giving them the options of what we can provide, such as the powwow, et cetera, and whatever. So with this item specifically, unless there's specific direction, we'll mark this as no action taken.
I would say submit it to the Trey, the veterans, different people, and see what they would do,
Right.
what they could do, because I've seen things happen. Ruben Snake went to Germany, and he had some kind of event, and the price for that event was 3-day visit to Winnebago. Then he forgot all about it. And the people from Hotel, Mrs. Hunt, came along with Ruby. And I should say that the little girl won it, Francisca. And she was coming to the Winnebago reservation. And they wanted her to stay at some Indian family's house. I had 2 daughters, granddaughters, 2 daughters the same age. So they came and asked me if I would sponsor this girl. Their husband, her dad was a minister. So they came and we worked it out. And Nita took it upon herself to have me do all kinds of work on the house, cleaning it up. The Germans are coming.
The Germans are coming.
Geez, I've met at them damn Germans by the time they finally got here. So we bought her, and we made a good thing out of it. But if you get to the group to talk to them and put on a little presentation so that they understand Winnebagos. We could develop that same presentation we talked about earlier for the youth groups that come in these churches and others, if they could learn about the tribe.
Yeah.
But I'm for working out a program with them. And I'm open.
Right. Okay. Eric?
I see that they kind of put in a request to go to the Angel Decorah Museum and Research Center. And so I would be in agreement to have the college, the museum, get in touch with them. And no matter what, that could be one of their first introductions into our community. And maybe even giving a tour of our community at River Bottoms, you know, just so they can get familiarized with the area. And so when they do come up to do some work for the community, that they kind of will have a little prior knowledge of where they're going and what it kind of looks like, little lay of the land there. So that's kind of what I would like to see done,
Okay.
is to introduce them to the museum and let them get the basics down of the lay of our land. Thank you.
Okay, so in essence, we will continue to reach out to the troop leader and see how that can continue to be explored with the various areas within the community. Okay, item number 3, Flandrau Indian School Board. The Flandrau Indian School contacted the tribe, and basically what they're looking for is a tribal representative, as there are a few students who do attend Flandrau Indian School. And so they're looking for that type of representation. So is there any interest among the council members to become a member of the Flandrau Indian School Board?
The deadline for that.
Well, it was technically 2 days or 3 days ago,
Yeah.
but I don't think that,
It says if we do not hear from you, we will move to the next tribe for the eligible seat.
so. Was there any interest?
I'll volunteer.
Okay. Do we have a motion to appoint Coley Brown as the Winnebago representative for the Flandrau Indian School Board?
Second.
Moved by Louis, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Isaac. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carried. Item number 4, we received a request for submitted testimony for the Committee on Appropriations, Subcommittee on the Department of Interior, Environment, and related agencies for the House of Representatives for their FY 2023 Annual Appropriations Bill. As you can see in the packet, the email that was received was basically looking for any type of written testimony for the tribe to basically have a say in some way, and then I do believe the deadline for that written testimony has to be submitted no later than 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, March 10th. So I think at this point, unless there's specific action that needs to be taken today, this one could either be tabled, or we simply take this as the notice to the council members that if there's anything that you wish to be brought forward and submitted in writing to the House subcommittee and committee, that the clock is now ticking. Eric, then Lorelei.
I think we should table this so we can have a full council discussion and we can all come together on what we might want to say. I'm pretty sure that we're going to want to say something
Sure.
for everything that we're doing with the land, the casinos, the gaming. And so I would like to make a motion to table this until further discussion.
Okay. We have a motion by Eric to table this. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Isaac. Any further discussion? Lorelei?
I was just saying that I don't want it to be a motion and then it's lost somewhere.
Okay.
What I'm hoping is that we direct the chairwoman to pull together ideas for testimony for this, and then we bring it back to the council. Otherwise, it's gonna be a motion sitting there and nothing's gonna happen. And we gotta get ready for this. So the chair could get input from the treasurer and Alan, get input from our other entities of all the important things we need to say. And then she can direct general counsel to draft it up. And then we bring it back and we approve it.
Okay,
I agree.
Okay.
that can happen within the table process. If possible, Eric and Isaac, in your motion, if you place this on the first of the month meeting for March,
Yes.
Okay.
That'd be perfect.
place that on the agenda for first of the month, so we can definitely have a point of bringing it back. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carried, unanimous. All right, item number 5, H Lake discussion.
Who made that motion? Oh,
Moved by Eric, second by Isaac.
okay. Thank
I
you.
have one comment.
Yes, Louis.
We've talked about putting together something that would give to the tribal court so they understand tribal people. This discussion is to deal with non-Indians kids coming and wanting to do a project. I think we need to consider the fact that we need to put together a whole plan for that. Because we talked about it. I think we need to put a plan together to direct Garrett to put together that program. So we have one. We can give to, because when I worked with Ricky in the churches, I used that postcard from Nebraska on the Buffalo program. And then we got started. But we need to have a motion or look at the next council meeting about putting together a plan for that. So it's not just idle talk. Because I just won't say anything about it, but the Smith family. There's a lot during the Second World War. Gus served as a driver for General Patton. I asked him about General Patton. He said he was a mean son of a bitch. And his dog was mean too. And that's all he would talk about, was that dog. He didn't talk about the combat or anything, because I never asked him. So we've got a lot to owe to these veterans and acknowledge what they've done for us. So,
Brian,
Kenny.
one year when I was a chairman, I went to one of these testimony committees for that subcommittee appropriations, and I took John and Louis Houghton with me. John was the vice chair, and I think Louis was the treasurer secretary at that time. So we went to those, and but you gotta have everything in order when
Right.
you go there, because they give you 5 minutes, and they try to make it to where you run out of time.
Yes.
And I sat at the first day's session, and I saw how many tribes just didn't get done what they wanted to ask for, because the congressman asked them questions just for the basic purpose of letting it end early. So we went in there and we had everything done in 4 minutes and 55 seconds. We came back with the money for the hospital, $5 million for the police program, and $15 million for the colleges. You gotta have your ducks ready when you go in there.
Right.
And when they try to stump you, you just tell them, you just give them a short answer and tell them the rest of the information is in the written report, and let's move right on.
Right.
You know, I've seen so many tribes, God, they failed at it, and that's really discouraging. That's just what that subcommittee wanted. But we were ready to do it that time. I think if 3 people go there and have it ready to go, they can come back with whatever they want.
Agreed, and we'll have that prepared in the discussion for that item, so. Okay,
But wouldn't that's why I was asking about having the chairwoman be working on it as she gets input from our entities. By waiting for this until the beginning of March when it's almost due, that's why I'm bringing this up, is I think we need some work on it.
Yeah,
And
and
the
rehearse.
chairwoman would take that on as directed by the council. She can get the input, and then we put it all together in a concise written testimony, so even if we only get 5 minutes, it's all in there what our tribe needs.
right, and I don't think, and moving that item, we're all actually on item 5 now. But moving that item to the first of the month meeting in March was simply, that's the point with which the decision will be made. So the work that you're discussing has to be done prior to that.
So is that directing the chair? Because there's no motion to direct the chair.
No, but at the same time, I think we can have that discussion with her when she returns.
Okay.
So we are actually still on item number 5, H Lake discussion. I am not too familiar with this, and there's nothing in the packet regarding it. What? Coley?
Vice Chairman,
And then
yeah.
Eric?
I put this on the agenda, our H Lake. Last year it was very low. The kids could walk across it actually. And with the drought we're in and that we're gonna be in, if we don't get a ton of snow and a lot of rain, drastically it could dry up. And that's a recreational area for our kids. So I guess under our physical natural resource work group, you know, which John was on there, Louis, myself, and Eric and Isaac. Maybe we can put this on the agenda on
The mid-month?
CEO, or
Okay,
because we can get their personnel in there,
okay.
physical resources, the roads, and see what we can do. Okay. that was it.
Eric?
I'll agree with Councilman Brown on that. And not only that, but we need a place this summer for recreation for our community members, knowing that it's sanded and there's no water flow in there and it's stagnant. And we just want to keep that water moving. And now we have this was brought up, I think last year, but it was kind of late in the season. And so if we can get on a jump on it now and start putting bids out there, and even asking the company that did it last to come back in, see how much it costed, or doing something to move forward with that, to have it done this summer. And we have an eagle's nest down there in that area now, and they're migrating back through right now. And they find that to be a real good place to fish at. I'll say it like that. And so it's not only beneficial for us, but the wildlife on our reservation as well. So that's kind of what I would like to see as well. Let's put this in another meeting where we can have more personnel in direct contact with the council, have more heads and ideas of working together in the same direction. So I'm in agreement with that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Lorelei?
Mr. Vice Chair, I invited Denise Jensen to weigh in on this. If she has anything she can add now, and then hopefully she's going to be a part of the meeting with Coley on the H Lake that Coley is going to be having.
So she's in the meeting now.
Yes.
Denise, are you on, do we have her on the line?
She's showing that she's on.
She's on.
Denise, can you hear us? Are you self-muted?
There, I'm unmuted now.
We can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, I know that the Corps, I think, and Ron, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think back in 2004 is when the Corps made this, trying to restore an oxbow. And I know the Corps went out and did some more work not too long ago. I'd have to go back and look and see when and what the plans were to make H Lake deeper. I went out last year and sampled, and the ground is is very muddy. It used to be sandy, but it's muddy and mucky. So I like the idea of it being a recreational area. I'm also using that area as making kind of a riparian project to restore plants for just a kind of a pilot project that maybe we can use competitive grants on our non-point source. So we've done water quality sampling there last year and the year before last. It's also one of our fish tissue sites under the regional ambient fish tissue. So we do plugs out there for mercury. So I think what's happening, and it's just that the water, it's just silting in. It's silting in. It's normally, its full function is that water fills in through H Lake from the Missouri River. Of course, the Missouri River is down considerably. So it may be already silted in. And one of the folks that might be of really importance is, I'll just throw out, the Corps, because if we're talking about dredge and fill and opening that back up, that they would probably need to be contacted. That's my recommendation.
All right, thank you, Denise. Eric?
Mm-hmm.
I was down at the river bottoms a few days ago, and we had some people from Aberdeen down there looking at that bridge that we just did a makeshift make after it flooded, just so we can have our enrolled membership be able to enjoy that eastern part of our reservation, our river bottom down there. And so they're talking about putting a different box culverts in there, or even doing a small bridge. I gave them some of my personal ideas that when that floods, we get the trees that come from down upstream from the river and they go in there. And that's what helped block it up last time when it flooded and washed that out. And so I was talking to the surveyors down there to keep in mind a small bridge opposite of what it once was. When you went on there, you had to go down, across, and then back up the other side. And looking right upstream about 50 yards, seeing that was about the same height as the bridge, which wasn't doing us any justice with the water level. And so they said money wasn't an object with that, to even possibly put a small bridge in there going up and then over and then back down. And now that we're talking about dredging, that we might be able to connect those both waterways and open that other one back up again. If the bridge or whatever we're going to be doing upstream at that crossing, if that can get done before the dredging does, that we might be able to connect those two and get water flowing back through there again as well. So just kind of looking at two different dynamics to make them work together. But if that bridge crossing doesn't get done in time, that we can still dredge H Lake out and get fresh fish in there, because there's probably fish in there that are probably dying just from lack of oxygen or lack of movement of the water. And so it's just different ideas. And I see we have Ron with us, that he might be able to give us some kind of insight of what's going on with the river crossing or dredging out H Lake. Not the river crossing, but the crossing that we just put in there, of maybe connecting them or doing them two separate projects, H Lake prior to the crossing, and cleaning that back out again. Thank you.
Ron, do you have any comments? You might be muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Brad?
we can hear you now.
Yeah. What we're doing, what we got approved by FEMA to fund the project was basically to make improvements to the crossing that we've had down there before. And without going into too much detail, the way that Dusty described it is you know, it used to be, you know, you dip down, you know, 7 or 8 feet, you know, down to go over the top of the box culverts that are there. There's box culverts that were installed in, I think 2004, I think is when we put those in. And what's happened after, you know, we had the 2011 flood that silted pretty much everything in. And then again in 2019, it washed everything out, and, you know, silted that entire, you know, we had it was called what the heck was it? It was a mitigation project, and it was opened up an old oxbow is what that, you know, what they did, or what actually we did it. And because we opened that up, we rented equipment and we dug that channel out. I think it was 30 foot wide across the bottom, and it matched up with those old culverts that are there. If you drive down there now, you'll see the top of the old box culverts, and there's almost no water at all can get through them, just because the entire channel is silted in. So what we have approved is to put new culverts directly over the top of those culverts that are there. And I've got Shane and Jeff from the BIA down there doing just topographic work. And then I've got roads department's been hauling rock, and I don't know if Dusty saw all the rock we got down there, but instead of rebuilding it the way that it is, or you know, that it was built originally, you know, just basically with sand and a little bit of rock on the sides, we're building it with solid rock. And this is Brenda from, it was basically her idea from Aberdeen. You know, she's done a lot of work like up in Alaska and stuff, and that's what they do is they put like huge the gradation on the boulders that we're hauling right now, I think are like 80 pounds up to 500. And we're basically going to we're going to put the culverts in right over the top of the ones that are there. And then we're going to drop, it's like, I think it was 6,000 tons of riprap on both sides, and then pave over the top of it. So if the crossing is inundated again with floodwaters, it won't take it out, because what's happened in the past is, you know, we've got, you know, maybe some paving over the top, and we had box culverts in there, but the main core of the crossing was sandy material. And when those floodwaters run for several days, it just takes it out. And you know, we've had to put it back in, but we put it back in with sand, you know, which is the, you know, just local material from right there. So we've got, it's a $2.2 something million project. It's pretty bizarre how much money it's going to cost, but we're basically putting all that rock in that Rhodes is hauling right now. So the whole thing's going to be just solid rock. So if it does flood again, if it floods again, and even if the culverts get plugged up with tree branches, which is the biggest problem with trying to put a bridge in, Dusty, is we get, you know, a lot of cottonwood trees and stuff, you know, trying to come down through there. So we're going to have, you know, 500-pound rock to where we'll put a little swale in the top of it, to where if we're inundated again, water goes over the top of it, it's going to go right over the top of our rock, and it won't take that 500-pound rock out. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're working on right now. And I put yesterday morning, put the notice to bidders in the Sioux City Journal, you know, for the next 3 weeks, for the furnished in place on the new culverts. So we're putting it in similar, you know, the similar location, but the culverts are going to be raised up. You know, they're going to be like 6 foot high culverts that are going to sit right on top of the, when you went down there and drove across there, and I know Coley's been down there too, but you can see the top of the old boxes. So we're going right over the top of it. So we're raising up where we were and filling it up with rock is what we're doing. So.
I think what we need to do is we need to put in the biggest culverts possible. What are they, 10 by 12 or something like that, 10 by 10? Because from the side, I mean, we got about I don't even know what it is, 70, 80 feet across there, the whole entire thing. That I think what we need,
The culverts are, yeah.
I was explaining to those individuals down there that when you look at it from the upstream and looking back downstream at the crossing, we need to have it more open than closed, because like you said, that the trees go down there and kind of plug it up, and it helps silt down the the box culverts. And even if we start with the big ones on the bottom, the big ones, and then move to smaller box culverts on top of them, I think that would be more beneficial for that bottom layer, because like I said, you look upstream from the bridge right now about 50 yards, and that's just about as high as the crossing is. And if the water level gets that high, we know it's already going to be as high as the crossing is right now. And so that's why I'm saying that we need to have the biggest box culverts on the bottom at least, and put smaller ones on top of that for overflow. So that's just kind of a idea of what I'm looking at down the road, because because the forces of nature, you know, they can move mountains, and it's going to move 500-pound, 80-pound rocks with like nothing. And so that's what I'm saying, that the area that we're going to be crossing, majority of that for that 80-foot span would have to be open. And I would prefer to have that open with the biggest box culverts available, at least on the bottom, and on top of that, we can put smaller ones. So that way it reduces the possibility to have that crossing flooded again. So it's just an idea, and hopefully, you know, like we can all work through something and get to the final project together. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eric. I think in general, council and Ron, can we have a motion to place this item on the next CEO report so we can have the deeper, further discussion with all the individuals who will be involved? Is there a motion to that effect? Moved by Kenny. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. So, any further discussion?
Yeah,
Yes, Louis.
I think we need to figure out what we want in the end. And take a look at that water when it's high. When it runs through there, it could dredge that out. Look at the way it is now, in the gentle curves, is to control the water. And the water wants to go back to its original place. And if you use that hydraulic force, if the engineers could use that hydraulic force, it could come through and clean that out. And let the hydraulic force from when you have the river high, have it work for you and clean that out. And the engineers can sort of figure out the way to do it. Because the problem with the treaty, it defined the reservation boundaries. Well, Old Man River didn't read the treaty. It just changed. And that when they controlled the access channel, it destroyed a lot of species of fish, habitat. It just messed our reservation up. But if we could find a way to use that hydraulic force to benefit the tribe, so I'd ask the engineers to look at that. I said, I want the river and the hydraulic force is tremendous. But we need to look at it in a constructive way to use that hydraulic force. We have there's water pumps. I mean, you can get electricity out of that. You can do different things to make money out of it. And in doing that, you could look at the channel coming through. Enough water coming through it controlled channel. It would make that feasible. So we gotta look at turning that into a park that has the finances to cover things that tribal people want to use. So I'm quite open to looking at that. And from we're always looking at that river, but somebody wanted to take it from us and using it for their purposes and to get money. They got money to take it away from us, which I fought and lost. But we've got to think of ways to have that river work to our advantage. I don't have the answers. That's all.
Any further discussion?
I just want to weigh in
Isaac.
a little bit. We're going to pull this up here and take a look at what Louis is talking about. Just, yeah, right there. And so one of the things that we look at is we always look at where to get the money, how to make it sustainable, right? How do we do this? How do we pull this off? And going along with some of the discussion that's already been here at the table and some of the ideas and hitting on some of the stuff that Louis just brought up was being able to create electric off this river. If we was able to find the funding to be able to do this, the first process, anything to do with that river would go through what they call a 404 permit. We would file that down to Army Corps of Engineers, basically just saying here's what we want to do, and then they would yay or nay it, and then we would go through with the construction side of it, and then they would just come up and say let us know that we could go ahead and open up whatever we were creating. And where I learned a little bit about this was I kept trying to push for a boat ramp down the river. And I used safety for that factor of if we had something that went on, we would have easy access to deploy a boat. One of the things going along with some of the stuff that Louis brought up is that if you look at where the old channel was, and I don't know if I can grab this mic, but the old channel was right up here where it came in. That's closed off now. They kind of silted in and everything. But go ahead and zoom out a little bit, Garen. And then as it comes down, zoom out some more. Just pull this back up, yeah. As it comes down, it would backfeed this right here, the H Lake. And so if we open that up and we actually had that flowing through, and then I believe the bridge is right there where we're talking about what Ron Noor was talking about, the culverts and stuff. If there was a way to create some kind of hydraulic pressure, opening that up, letting that push the rest of that silt through there, and also putting some kind of they have these wheels that they put in the water, and some people will put actual dams in and stuff like that. But if we was able to create that, we could also use that electric that's off of there to run power not only to Big Bear Park, but we could run power to these two center pivots out here. This is tribal land. The lease on this is last I knew was about $800,000 just to lease that out. That's good farm land. It always gets flooded, but we could actually have electric in the Big Bear Park and then be able to run that off there. There's been talk about over here is probably right on this corner here. This is the big hill that comes down, and then the road turns. That's where your power ends. But we were talking about at the time the Olsons farmed these. And we said, Olson's, will you chip in half with the tribe if we run electric to those center pivots? And at the time they did, but today Ho Chunk farms those, and so they still there's two pivots on this side, and I believe there's two pivots on this side. So if we did look at the idea and go into that even more, there is a way that we could be able to help ourselves not only with the farmland, but also providing some of that electric within the park and making it more of a recreational area as far as maybe a showers for people that are camping down there, and then have that open year round. Wildlife and Parks at the time, they're in discussion right now of closing down and having just hours down there that you can be at the park and down the river bottom. The reason for that is because of some of the trash and some of the vandalism that they're kind of seeing increase up to this day and age. So they're starting to look at those ideas of saying, hey, you have to have a permit to be down here after hours, or you have to have a certain business to be down here. But I throw this idea out there, just kind of tying everything, the discussion that I've heard so far, in with the rest of the council, and then just something to think about to making this a little bit better place down there for our kids. One of the great things about this here was that it was funded by, I believe, the Army Corps of Engineers. There was two 15-foot holes, and maybe Ron could correct me if I'm wrong, but 15-foot holes. One was over here, and then another one was back here. And this was supposed to be for, I believe, a sturgeon mating area, or either spoonbill. But that was the kind of they said that they didn't really want boat traffic in there, because of that was a safe place for the fish to come off the river and actually spawn and all that stuff. And so one thing that it wasn't real deep, but there wasn't no current in there, so it made a nice beach area for people to come down and swim. And if you take a drive down there in springtime, there's a lot of families that'll go down there and they'll take their little kids and their little shades and stuff like that, and kind of have a good time, haul their grills in and stuff. It's pretty neat to see all those people down there. But on the other side, we have a lot of people that go down there and kind of mess it up for the rest of us too, by throwing stuff around, breaking glass and all those things. Those are some of the battles that Wildlife and Parks has, trying to maintain that and keep the glass out of the sand so that little kids don't get their feet cut and stuff like that. So I just wanted to share that with the rest of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Lorelai. And then Ron.
Okay, just 2 weeks ago, the Winnebago tribe and all the tribes along the Missouri River got a grant announcement that any of the tribes that have water projects can submit them. And so wouldn't this fit with all the pieces, everybody putting the input together for the Winnebago tribe to apply? And it involves Missouri River water projects. So we could put all our costs, that all these great ideas you guys have, into this plan, but we need somebody to write it. So like, could the planning department get everybody together and let's go for the funding? This is wonderful. Look at the different parts that we could go for this funding for, not have to depend on this piece of money and that piece of money. The grant announcement is out there right now for the Missouri River tribes to submit for funding for water projects with the Missouri River. So I was afraid that if we didn't, that would be an excuse for non-Indians to say, well, the tribes don't want to use the water, so under eminent domain, let us use it. So that's just an idea. I can send that grant announcement out because it came to all of us, if you don't remember the announcement for it. Do you remember that, Brona? Yeah, it's a water project. We could submit this. All these great ideas here. Thank you.
Ron.
Okay, about maybe 2.5 or 3 weeks ago, Coley Brown called me and was asking, or he was just talking about what the condition is of H Lake now compared to when it was built in, I think, 2004, and then I think again in 2013 after it was dredged out, because they after the 2011 flood, it just completely filled in with sand, which is the same way with the waterway that it runs all the way through there. When we have a flood down there, it scours in some areas and then it fills in other areas. And that waterway that goes through there, that was evidently a waterway at one time. I don't know, maybe not original, but at one time it was a waterway, but it fills in with sand is what it does now. And Coley had called, and we just talked about how nice that used to be when they first built it in 2004, and then even after they redredged it, they took 900 and some thousand cubic yards that they dredged out of it, after it filled in after the 2011 flood. That was in 2013. But I had called down, and I was working with I can't remember how you pronounce his last name, but I've got his phone number that I talked to about just a low water crossing, and he said that we don't have to go through a permitting if we're just basically refurbishing or rebuilding the structure that was there, just raising the culverts up and putting rock in instead of putting sand in. But what he told me when I asked him about trying to get a dredge back in there and try and get that recreation area, the swimming and fishing area, like what Isaac was talking about, he said probably, he said it, he said that they look at it, like if they're going to pull 900,000 cubic yards out of there again, that could be $2 or $3 million, just for the construction. And he said that normally it winds up it's a budgetary issue to where they can't just normally say, oh yeah, let's go ahead and do that. It needs to go through the planning process and get money's appropriated for that from for that budget year. And he said probably a letter from the tribe or tribal chairman would be appropriate, making that request, because I've got a copy of the environmental assessment that they did, and I think it was like 2012, after the 2011 flood, and they opened it up that time. They tried to get it back to as close to the original condition as what they could, and right now it's a bunch of mud out there, and it isn't worth the crap. It's just overgrown, and it was really nice. I mean, most of you guys have probably been down there, but it was a really nice area. After it was refurbished, it was better. But a letter from tribal council or the chairman, to try and restore that from the 2019 flood. This 2019 flood, did a lot of damage down there again. That's what he told me. To try and get a letter of request.
I think that we can continue to have, I guess, the more solidified versions of this conversation when we do have this with the CEO's report, and then again all the department people that need to be involved with this as well. And remember, we are in discussion. So is there any further discussion? Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, so that item will be placed on the next CEO report, and anything pertinent to that, please have that prepared and forwarded to Esther, so then she can begin to involve the department. All right, item number 6, Powwow Grounds Arena prep in April. There's nothing in the packet for this. Was this someone's item? Eric.
For the last few years, we've had a pretty rough arbor, inside the arbor, potholes. It's just uneven. Just feeling that coming in doing grand entry, it's pretty rough, and can only imagine that for the dancers. And I just wanted to bring this to light, that I think right now is the perfect time to start planning for our homecoming celebration for the summer, and to bring it to the powwow committee's attention. And so we need to do an update on that powwow committee. Last time I knew there was like 1 or 2 people that put in for it, and then it's been silent since for the last few months. And so we just need to start being more proactive with our powwow committee and start following up with that, so we can be ready in July. And right now is a perfect time to start doing that, to give them reaction time to start advertising and looking for donations, so we're not rushing around like we have been at the last minute. So that's kind of what this is, and that's one of the areas I'd like to push. And so the council is mindful of it, of redoing that arbor, having now that grass scraped out of there, leveled off, and probably just start with sod. It'd be even, level, it'd be soft for the dancers, and then we have our sprinkler system, which it would accommodate that. They can cut the holes out for the sprinkler systems, or using sod, or some kind of false cover for the sprinklers during the festival, that they can be danced over and stepped on and stuff like that. And then when it's all done, they can take those off, and then the sprinkler systems can pop back up and start helping that sod grow. So it's just kind of a direction from that I would like to see us go from here. And the sooner the better we get on this powwow committee and start re-advertising or put it back out there, follow up on the applicants that have put in for it, to just be proactive. Now's the time to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I think this is also an item that can be placed with the CEO. Not necessarily for her to specifically take action on, but definitely provide the follow-up that you're looking for, as well as updating to where the committee stands in its membership, et cetera, as well as if they've done any type of work planning for this year's celebration. So do we have a motion to place the powwow grounds update on the next CEO as well?
Make that motion.
Moved by Eric, second by Coley. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Louis?
I think we need to look at, actually following what happened at the baseball field in Sioux City for the Explorers. He brought a guy in, and he put together a plan, and he reseeded. He put in grass that could stand heavy impact. We got to start a year early, put that grass in, let it grow and stand and build itself up, and then find the recommendations on when to mow it. So, but you have a field that will stand like for football or baseball. It's designed to do that. We just put garden variety of grass out there. But you can put together a plan to put grass that can handle high impact, and then take care of it, and just mow it. And it should survive a powwow. A lot of plants with buffalo, and the buffalo herd would come through and wipe the plants down, way down. And that reinvigorated the area. The buffalo would take care of that. But we've got to put in a quality grass. And because every year that grass problem is a problem for dancers. And I think we've got to find somebody, put together a plan for us. That's all.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I have one thing.
Isaac?
So not to drag it out, but one of the things too is that they've when we come to fixing up the powwow grounds and stuff, a lot of times it would come out to be to take that out of the powwow budget, and I think this needs to be taken out of somewhere else, and I don't have the answer where we would possibly be able to do that or what. I would probably seek some help from the treasurer, but if we pay for this out of the powwow budget, it cuts down the powwow budget, and then it just kind of messes with the whole powwow. So as we move forward to this, I throw this out there because that's one of the things that we're gonna need to do is to find the funding source, be able to develop that plan and do that, but, at the same time, I would be open to finding a funding source that we could be able to put this plan together, like what Louis is saying, if it comes to bringing in people to look at how do we maintain this, the high impact, the high traffic area, seating, some of the sod. I know there's some sods that are out there too that can withhold that, and then the different, all the different issues that we have. So I put that out there because that's one of the things we can't cut into the Powell budget to fix the arena. There should be a separate funding source there, but just as we move forward, I just kinda wanted to bring that up.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay. So the next item that we have, item number 7, the Iowa Department of Transportation consultation regarding the Federal Highway Act. This is basically the state of Iowa's attempt to seek the tribe's willingness to interact regarding the various highway projects that the tribe may be involved in the state of Iowa. In the packet, there is also a form that is being requested to be submitted. So unless there is further discussion, the chair will entertain a motion to authorize the chair to take all actions necessary to reply to the Iowa Department of Transportation. Coley? Moved by
moved.
Coley. Second.
Second.
Second by Louis. Sorry, Rona. Any further discussion?
I find the Iowa Department of Transportation has always been helpful when I've worked with them.
Sure.
They told us how to get signs up to bypass the federal laws. And don't put casino on there. Put Winnebago Indian Reservation. And everyone knows you're going to the casino when you go to the reservation.
Right.
So they put those signs up for us on the Winnebago Indian Reservation. So they showed us how to work through a problem. They were helpful. And that's why I like them, because they'll listen to you. You got to pound on the head with Nebraska sometime.
You also notice Nebraska Department of Roads has, for some reason, the snow is harder to plow on this side of the river.
Yeah.
But anyway, any further discussion? Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carried. All right. Were there additional items added to the agenda prior to?
No.
Okay, so now we're on to item number 8, the executive session. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to go into
Moved by
executive
Eric.
session.
Is there a second? Second by Coley. Without objection, we are in executive session at 12:05.
And the CAO and Terry Medina, along with the tribal member, will go into the executive session.
All right, so we will.
Oh, and HR director.